Hi, I'm David Gross with Condi Systems, back with you again to share one of my tips and tricks for sublimation success. This tip is really a follow-up to a previous tip about how much does it cost to print with your Ricoh printer. And what I want you to do is refer back to my video, and you can do a search, and it's ink levels, and it will show you how to determine your ink levels on your Ricoh printer. And so the next logical thing is, how much does it cost me to print with my printer? We're going to walk you through the math on how to calculate that number. So just to give you a little bit of a refresher, when we take our Ricoh printer out of the box and we put our first set of cartridges in, all the cartridges have 100% in each cartridge. And that's a total of 400% of ink. And we use a certain amount of ink, depending on which printer you have, to fill the tubes in the printer. And after they're filled, you're left with a certain amount of ink. Well, when you replace a cartridge from then on, you'll start again at 100%. And so for this discussion, I'm going to do a little math here, and apologize, I'm left-handed, so I have a little bit of a challenge with writing. But we're going to say you went to the video and you watched your ink levels, and your beginning ink levels, we'll call it the beginning, was 47%, say, for the yellow, 68 for the magenta, 27% for the cyan, and 35% for the black, giving us a total of 177% total ink in the printer. Now the ending ink levels, after we do, say, a run of, say, 25 sheets, we had an ending of about 43% for the yellow, 64% for magenta, 24% for cyan, and black was 30%, giving us a total of 161%. Okay, and so the amount of ink we used for that is, of course, 16%. Okay, 16%. That's how much ink we used to print our 25 sheets. Okay, so if we take that 16% and we divide by 25, okay, that tells us how much ink by percent that we use for the page, and that turns out to be 0.64%. Okay, so we used 0.64% of a cartridge to print each of our 25 sheets. All right, so how much does that cost in dollars? Well, for 7,000, the cartridges are about $110 a piece. And if we divide by 100%, which is how much you get for your money when you buy a full cartridge, that turns out that's $1.10 per percent. $1.10 per percent that you pay for. And so the final step is to calculate our cost. We just simply take $1.10 and we multiply times 0.64%. Okay, and that means that the cost of printing is 70 cents per page for ink. So this is 70 cents per page for ink. All right, need to add to that, of course, the cost of paper. All right, in this case it was an 11 by 17 sheet. My rule of thumb is that if you do a full coverage letter size piece of paper on a 7,000, that's probably about 50 cents for ink. On a 3300, it's probably about 60 cents, so it's slightly more expensive on a 3300. And I hope this helps you know what your cost is. Why is it important to know what your cost is? In my mind, it's two things. One is so that you'll have a better handle on your profit. You know, what are you making on the job, you know, and that kind of stuff. Number two is that if you're watching your ink levels, you know, especially recording them, like I tell you on my tip number one is document, then you'll know if you're getting your money's worth, okay? And so you'll understand really what yield did you get out of that cartridge, okay? And I think that's important because every once in a while something's going to happen. You're going to say, wow, I don't think I got my money's worth. If you go back to your log, see when you replace the cartridge, and what I tell people to do is when you replace a cartridge, at that moment also write down what your ink levels are and write down your copy count. What is your printer at? And that gives you an idea of when you're replacing the cartridges, you know what's going on with your ink. Very important. Also, I recommend, as in a previous tip, is that you keep your printer's firmware updated. Usually the changes I'm seeing now from Ricoh when they upgrade the firmware, they're related to minimizing the amount of ink that's used in priming cycles and cleaning cycles and maintenance cycles, all those kinds of things. So I think updating your firmware is a good idea. How often should you check? At least twice a year. You can look on our website in the support section under Ricoh support, and it'll tell you the firmware. I don't recommend that you simply hike over to Ricoh's site and upgrade the firmware, because I want to check out the firmware first to make sure it doesn't fix one thing and break something else. Okay? So I hope this tip has been helpful for you. I always love to hear feedback from folks. My email address is dgross@conde.com. Until we meet again, thank you.